Everybody. It's John Sherk here on Wednesday morning, just before 11 o'clock Central Time. And so now we're taking a look at Brown Bag Lunch, where I give you tactics and paradigms and other methods for either living a great life as a technician or assisting in that process, whether you are someone who loves a technician or has employed a technician or maybe both. So today I want to talk about feedback and professional agreements. This is a very specific tactic, communication-wise, that can be used by technicians either with customers or inside the building with service managers or other people with formal authority to essentially exert power in a healthy way to make their opinions known or give feedback and then have a path moving forward. So feedback generally is unclear. It doesn't work. There's a couple of interesting studies that have been done. There's a Japanese researcher that studied in two different studies, looked at feedback and said, out of, as a percentage of total workforce, what kinds of feedback come out of it. And that kind of feedback that says, I'm going to go to my supervisor, I'm going to go to my customer, and I'm going to give direct feedback. That in one study of his was 22.8%, and the other one was 18.3%. So we're basically talking about 1 in 5. So that means if you have 20 technicians, about 4 of them will give direct feedback. The other 16 will usually not. Okay. Now, I'm going to say in a minute here what their feedback normally looks like. But if you're an owner or a service manager, here's what I want to recommend. However you can get the feedback, take it. Don't try to draw a line in the sand and say, look, if you're not going to be a man and talk to me directly, then I don't care what you've got to say. I wouldn't go there. There's things that technicians know. They know what's going on in the field. They know what's going on with customers, and you need to know that. And so if for whatever reason they don't feel confident or comfortable giving you direct feedback, take it how you can get it, go ask more questions, but kind of say however they can get it to me, I'll take it. So the other versions of this in decreasing percentages of people doing it, there's an incremental disclosure, testing the water to see what the response is, and then I'll tell you the rest. There's deniability, maybe mentioning the gist of an idea or making sure the boss doesn't know who came up with the idea. So there's a deniability content to it. A third party, it comes up as if it was someone else's idea, right? Or a third party gets sent to the boss because that person will talk to the boss, but I won't. A lot of these also apply to customers. What it looks like with a customer is instead of saying, here's what needs to happen, it comes out as, here's how my boss wants this done. Okay. Which is not the best version of this. But again, that's why we're doing this stuff. We all have to learn and develop. There's the preparing documentation and waiting to be asked. This is 10% of workers across the board. What this means is if you have 20 technicians in a company, 2 of those technicians have very significant feedback to give. They've researched it. They have it all written out, and it's in a drawer or in their truck or something, but they're not going to give it until someone asks for it. Okay. So keep that in mind. And again, service managers, owners, please don't be offended or whatever. Offended, leave it at that. Don't be offended if they're not giving you this feedback because they don't know what's at risk. If they don't know what's at risk, then they need to be asked in order to get this. Another version is kind of rehearsing it. I'll tell somebody else first and then see what it looks like to them. There's doing it with humor or joking to try to take the seriousness off of it. There's people who give feedback only through computer-mediated means. They'll only send a text. They'll only send an email. They won't come talk to you face-to-face. And then lastly is the group that uses the grapevine, trying to get an idea to somebody using either word of mouth or starting a rumor with the goal of it getting picked up by someone in authority by hearing it. So there's all kind of in the company versions of these, and there's also with customer versions of these. So what do we do instead? What should we do instead? What do you want to train your people to do instead, or what do you want to ask me to train your people to do instead? And it is give clear feedback. Clear feedback involves clear data and judgment, observing a cause-effect relationship, and then either giving gratitude for feedback that something is working really well, or requesting for something different and then agreeing on a path forward. Okay, so there are 5 steps here, and again, some of this comes from a guy named Mark Horstman on managertools.com. Great guy, really recommend their company. They do a more corporate management thing than is true for or needed for most air conditioning companies, but they still have great content, so feel free to look them up. Step 1 is asking permission. Can I give you some feedback? Can I ask you about something? Can we talk about such and such a topic? And asking if it's okay to talk about that topic. Hey, can we talk about the way we structure our bonus program? Hey, can we talk about how calls are distributed? Can we, whatever it is, right? Step 2 then is describing the behavior. When you give me a task with no deadline, when you tell me how to communicate with a customer, when files are set up this way, when you communicate with me only by email and text messages, whatever the specific behavior is. And it's specifically, we're talking about words they say or how they say them, or direct actions that are taken, or some version of work product, like when you don't wear booties when you go in the door. Whatever the behavior is we're talking about. We're not talking about intent, motivation, and attitude. When you come to a meeting and your attitude stinks, well, instead say when you come to a meeting and you're on your phone the whole time and you kind of Step 2, describe the behavior. And then step 3, describe the impact. So when you do X, here's what is happening, or here's the outcome, or here's what's happening for me. If it's positive, I notice your engagement and I appreciate it. I notice, that you're looking out for us technicians. So I want you to know I appreciate it. When you praise guys in the safety meeting, here's what happens. We all know you appreciate us. So I just want to say thank you, right? You're reinforcing a behavior. On the other side of it, if it's something that you need to change, here's what happens. I get confused. I don't know for sure what you're really saying, something like that. And so then step 4 is there any way we can do this differently? And opening up, you've described a cause-effect relationship. You're avoiding saying, I want you to do X, right? What you are saying is, can we talk about this? When this behavior happens, here's the cause-effect dynamic. And if it's negative, is there a way we can do this differently? And opening a dialogue, a conversation about where it's open for you and it's open for them to say ways that maybe it could work differently. Okay. This dynamic removes the pure authority. I'm the boss. You do what I tell you. I'm not the boss. I have to do what I'm told dynamic. It's a cause effect. Maybe it's not positive. How can we do this differently? Right. And then as you come to a conclusion of how you want to do it differently, 5 then is forming a professional agreement. So we're agreeing that if you feel this way in the future, you'll pick up the phone and not email, right? Now, what that then does, once you have a professional agreement, is if the follow through isn't there, with no need for authority in the company's org chart, you can go back to that person and say, "Time out. Didn't we agree that we were going to do this differently?" Right? Oh yeah. Okay. So this is this communication loop. Now, if you're doing this with a customer, it looks the same way, kind of, but you're still describing, like, let's say customers, something's going wrong with the air conditioning, so they turn the thermostat down to 58, right? So how do you give that feedback? Okay, Kate, can I talk? When I got here, I noticed this thermostat was at 58. Can we, can I talk to you about that? Sure. Okay, so when you turn the thermostat all the way down, here's what happens. And then you describe it. The unit freezes up, or there's various things that can go wrong if you turn the thermostat all the way down. So next time, can we do this differently? Yes. Okay. Here's what we should do differently. Okay. But the whole time you're avoiding saying, I want X, will you do it or not? What you're actually doing is saying, can I have your permission to talk about this topic? And then describing a cause and effect dynamic, and then saying, I don't like the effect that's tied to that cause. So how can we do this differently? Okay. Then you're negotiating a different way and forming a professional agreement, after which you can go back and say, didn't we agree that, if it doesn't happen? Okay. Makes sense? 5 parts. There's some really great stuff in there. And I'm giving you a fairly complicated, kind of structured way of doing this. But if this feels really meaningful to you, just click pause, rewind, and write down the parts, and then go practice it. Because once you pick up on this, you'll be able to use it in all sorts of ways. Okay, there you go. Feedback and professional agreements. I'm Dr. John Sherk, and I am here every week, hoping every single week I add value to your world. So I'll be here again next week, and we'll see you then.